Dungeons & Dragons doesn't have to be all high fantasy, dungeon exploration, and fighting dragons like the name of the game suggests. There are many different styles of D&D games that you can play. And the newest campaign guide just released is all about horror games. Just how good is this new sourcebook? In today's video, we're unleashing the horrors of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Now, the Ravenloft guide starts out with a really great introduction, going over what Ravenloft actually is. It's otherwise sometimes known as the Domains of Dread, and each of these domains is kind of a self-contained area that's drifting among the mists of the Shadowfell. It mentions a type of nightmare logic that goes on here in this area, where there's a lot of uncertainty, confusion, paranoia, mystery, and dread. Things here tend to defy logic and common sense that can really confuse and freak out characters. Now, you'll notice that I said this can really freak out the characters. There's a lot of information in here in the beginning of the book regarding the difference between scaring the characters and scaring the players. I highly recommend, just like the book suggests, of having a session 0 where people create characters together and you kind of get a sense of what type of game the players are looking for and what type of game the Dungeon Master is interested in running. If everybody in the game is completely okay with getting really freaked out as a player, then that's one thing and you could run a game like that. But they really encourage you to find out the comfort level of your players, because they may just want their characters to get scared and not actually get scared themselves. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a lot of tension and a really cool, intriguing game that the players are really into, but some people don't want to go home at the end of the game actually personally frightened and have nightmares. They suggest that you make your game spooky but enjoyable, and not necessarily prey upon the fears of the players themselves. The domains are generally shrouded in mist and their borders fade off into a haze. They can be the size of a whole country or a single city or even just a building. These domains exist to contain and torment a villain. Now, the villains in these domains are known as Dark Lords. And it's important to remember that a Dark Lord contained in a domain is actually trapped there and very tormented. They tend to have control over the domain, and they can vary in how threatening they are, but they're usually striving to achieve some type of ambition that's just tormenting them. Now, chapter 1 of the new Ravenloft book is all about character creation, and this is for both players and dungeon masters. I think a really neat aspect that was introduced in this book is the concept of lineages. Now, a lineage actually replaces your character's race. And you can create your character having that lineage already, or you can have them kind of gain the lineage throughout whatever adventure you're playing. Basically, your character has gone through some type of remarkable event that reshaped them and their reality, and it kind of allowed them to get these new racial feats that replace some of the original ones. There are 3 lineages available in the Ravenloft book that characters can choose from. We have a Dhampir, which is a vampire. This actually allows your character to have the spider climb feature and a vampiric bite attack. There's also a Hexblood lineage. This means your character was actually created by or influenced by hags, and you actually become of the Fae type, and you know some hex magic. Lastly, there's the Reborn lineage, where your character has died but is somehow still alive. You're kind of a deathless nature. You get advantage on death saves. You don't need to sleep anymore, and you can complete a long rest in only 4 hours. You also don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. Another really great feature of this book is the introduction of dark gifts. According to the book, your character can kind of strike a bargain with the dark powers to gain a mysterious power, but it always seems to come with a terrible price. The book lists 8 different dark gifts that characters can choose from, and they all seem to give you a couple really neat benefits, but a really interesting price to be paid. The dark gifts include the Echoing Soul, Gathered Whispers, Living Shadow, Mistwalker, Second Skin, Symbiotic Being, Touch of Death, and Watchers. Now, I always love new subclass options that are available, and Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft offers 2 new subclasses. We have the College of Spirits for the Bard and the Undead Warlock. These are really cool. You're really going to want to check them out. Next up, the Ravenloft Guide offers some really great options for backgrounds. There are 2 backgrounds available for characters to choose from in the Ravenloft Guide. The Haunted one, which may be the exact same background that was offered in the Curse of Strahd book. I know the Haunted one is also in that book as well. I'm not sure if they're identical or not. And the other one is called the Investigator. The other interesting thing it offers about backgrounds is to take any background you've already chosen and replace the main feature of the background with one found in the book. You can swap your main background feature for the Inheritor, Mist Wanderer, Spirit Medium, Trauma Survivor, or Traveler. So Chapter 1 adds a lot of variations to really customize a character that's going to react well specifically in a horror campaign. I can't wait to try some of these out. Which one are you looking most forward to trying? Comment down below and let me know. Adventurers, if you love all things Dungeons & Dragons, tips, tricks, unboxings, and reviews, you're going to want to make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and that notification bell so you don't miss any of my epic upcoming videos. And while I'm at it, I just want to give a quick shout out to my friend the Dungeon Glitch for sending me this great new t-shirt. This is one of my new favorites. It's a D20 with some cherry blossoms. He also sent me this great mug that says self-care with a healing potion that I've got my water in today. And this other really cool shirt that says crying is a free action. I thought that's great. You really need to go check out his store. Link down below. He's got some great D&D products. Now Ravenloft continues on in Chapter 2, All for the Dungeon Master. This is how to create your own domain of dread and how to create your own Dark Lord instead of using the ones that are included in the book. Next, the book goes over different genres of horror. There are full page spreads for 6 different kinds of horror games. They cover body horror, cosmic horror, dark fantasy, folk horror, ghost stories, and gothic horror. And in these spreads, you're going to find information like what types of monsters are best for this setting, what types of villains, what types of torments, different settings and adventure sites and horror plots that are good for those types of horror games. They've even included the basics for 4 more that you can improvise on yourself. We've got disaster horror, occult detective stories, psychological horror, and slasher horror. Now, Chapter 3 is all about a bunch of the different domains. There are 16 different domains with full characteristics in here, and then another 22 that just kind of have a little overview so you can come up with the details yourself. Each domain section is going to cover an overview, the main features of that domain, some settlements and special site areas, the Dark Lord that can be found there, and the types of adventures your characters would have there. Some even include maps and specific NPCs and how to roleplay them. Looking through it, I think my favorite is actually going to be the Creepy Carnival. Have you checked out any of these other domains yet? Make sure you comment down below with which one is your favorite. Now, Chapter 4 is another one of my favorites. It's all about how to run horror adventures. It goes into more detail about that Session 0 and discussing player boundaries, as well as accessibility, because you want to make sure all your players have a good time. It talks about setting the mood and creating a spooky atmosphere, but you want to take things into consideration like, my eyesight is not all that great. My DM might really want to create a dark room that's all candlelit and really moody, but then I'm going to have a very hard time visually seeing what's going on. So you want to make sure you're not making it difficult for your players to participate. It also goes into the special pacing that you might want to consider of a horror adventure. Maintaining a constant level of terror is a little unsustainable. It's going to create a little boredom for the players, and it's just unachievable. the players are going to start to grow a little numb of the endless tension. So you want to make sure that you're introducing things like tension occasionally here and there scattered throughout your adventure, and not have the entire game be under a sense of tension all the time. It talks about describing ways that this world undermines reality. They might see things that wouldn't exist in the normal world, like paintings suddenly crying, or oversized gigantic eyes appearing in the windows. You want the characters and the players to kind of question, did that just really happen? Did I just actually see that, or was I imagining that? You can also occasionally slow the pace to create tension. Stop and ask the players what their characters are feeling and what they're going through. You can also make suggestions to give them the sense that they're being watched. Sometimes another great way to create tension, though, is to speed things up and make the characters feel like they're out of time. Talk a little faster, talk in short bursts, and tell them there's no time to decide. What are you going to do? They also talk about, specifically in horror games, sometimes encouraging splitting the party, but make sure you keep each scene short to go back and forth so that the characters who aren't in the current scene are still going to pay attention and aren't getting bored. And always make sure you include some sense of hope. You don't want the players to just despair the whole entire time they're playing. That doesn't make for a fun game either. So provide a little bit of hope here and there. Give them opportunities to regroup and rest, opportunities to find out some weaknesses of their foes to use against them. Lastly, it talks about using props in your game. I don't know if this might actually be my favorite part of the whole book, but it talks about using the additional Taroka deck that you can get. I think I said that right. This is basically a deck of fortune-telling cards that are actually used in the Curse of Strahd campaign, but you can work them into your adventures anywhere in the Domains of Dread in Ravenloft. I'll put a link to those cards down below if you want to check them out. Now, the other amazing prop I think is in this book is a spirit board. So there is a picture of the board in the back, and there's a picture of the planchet in the front. This is essentially like a Ouija board, and it suggests you actually make some color photocopies of these, cut them out, and then either mount them on like cardboard or wood to create the prop to actually put down on the table to use in your adventures. How cool is that? The next part of Chapter 4 covers what D&D calls their horror toolkit. This introduces curses that can affect the players, how to create your own custom curses, as well as 4 sample curses that you can just pull right out of the book to use, ready to go. Next up is fear and stress in your game. It actually has a table called the Seeds of Fear that characters can choose something that really bothers their character, and anytime they successfully roleplay a situation that you think deserves it, the DM can award inspiration. This stress score that they've introduced in Ravenloft I think is a really great idea. It's similar to levels of exhaustion, but instead of a negative effect on your character, it actually makes you subtract from dice rolls depending on how much stress your character has. Another great section that the book covers is haunted traps. Now, you know your regular traps, you can use some thieves' tools and dexterity checks to look for traps and identify them and disarm them. Well, haunted traps work a little differently. Thieves' tools do not work on them. Things like channel divinity or remove curse are the only types of things that work on haunted traps. Also included, 4 samples of haunted traps that you can use right out of the book in your adventure. There's also an adventure included in the Ravenloft book called the House of Lament. It says it's designed for 4 to 6 characters and takes them from first level all the way till 3rd level. It's a really neat haunted house adventure that makes use of that spirit board to have the players conduct seances. Finally, we get to Chapter 5, and these are the new monsters specific to Ravenloft. In here, you're going to find 32 new monsters ranging in challenge rating from 1/8 all the way up to 21. 2 of my favorite creatures from this section of the book are the carionette, which is like a really evil, creepy marionette that carries a giant needle that it can pierce you with and do necrotic damage. Or it can even swap souls with you, taking control of your body while your body is left in the marionette, or the carionette. My other favorite is the Grimishka, which is kind of like one of those hairless cats. And it's got some really crazy features. It says that they're the product of mistakes made by spellcasters, and they have really strange effects when spells are cast near them. Not only do they get a bite attack, but they have a magic allergy. They might hit you with force damage, regain some hit points, or explode and turn into a swarm of Grimishkas. Then be careful. As a reaction, if your spell misses a swarm, it can redirect that spell to someone else, even your friends. Adventurers, if you're enjoying this video, can you go ahead and hit that like button, give us a thumbs up. It helps support the channel in so many ways. Time for the epic question of the day. What do you think of the Ravenloft guide? Is it something you're going to run out and pick up? What was your favorite part of everything I went over that's included in this new sourcebook? Let me know down below what you think. Once again, thanks to Dungeon Glitch for my new shirt and my new healing potion mug. Make sure you check out his link down below. Next, you're going to want to watch one of the videos on the next screen. Go ahead and click on that, and I will see you in that video. Now go have an epic adventure.